This is me before reading a single word of The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And I'm gonna check in after every 100 pages I read. There's 1,000 pages in this absolute unit. So I'll be checking in about like 10 times throughout this video with my spoiler-free thoughts and reactions. Aside from me knowing that this is the first book in the epic fantasy Stormlight Archive series, I honestly don't know anything about the subject matter of this book. Somehow, aside from the name Kaladin, I'm low-key like impressed with myself on how well I've avoided any spoiler or information about this. I'm legit going in blind. Like, I know people love this book, I know that, and I've read Mistborn, and I've read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, so I am familiar with Sanderson's writing, and it's great, and I love, Brandon Sanderson's my guy. So I got high hopes. My hopes are sky high. I got like the bowl of hopes. Maybe too high. It's got a lot to live up to. I didn't expect to read this chunker until next year, but you guys voted for me to read it in this video where I asked you guys what I should read next, and I'm a man of the people. So let's put these peepers on some pages. Let's do it. Already amped up about this. This map is sick. Don't know what any of that means yet, but I will. I think, I hope. Whoa, who are these guys? Is this an episode of The Last of Us? All right, let's see what kind of hijinks and tomfoolery the gang gets into in Roshar. Kind of nervous. Yeah, I'm also just pretending to read right now. I gotta shut this out. I'll check in about 100 pages. I feel like this is a Netflix documentary. Okay, so this starts off hot. But before I get into that, I feel like I haven't even given you any sort of summary of this book. According to Google, The Way of Kings is a sprawling epic fantasy where magic is returning to a world scarred by ancient betrayal and war. I don't think that helped clear anything up, especially for me. Even reading over 100 pages, I really don't even know what this is about. But yeah, so this starts off in like the aftermath of something big, I assume. It kind of just throws a bunch of confusing names and words and titles. I was honestly a little intimidated by it all, but you know, that's the name of the game with fantasy books. You kind of just gotta trust the process that you're gonna put the pieces together as you go. I guess that's the case with any story, but with fantasy specifically, it's all this new stuff, this world building that is incredibly complex, especially with this book. So the first chapter is actually a prelude, and the first chapter absolutely slaps. Whoever this guy Seth is, he's a beast. This starts off with action right off the bat, which I absolutely love. Once you're done with that prelude, you get a 4,500 year time jump. 4,500 years. I was here thinking this guy Seth is gonna be a main character, and look, maybe he is. Maybe he comes back in some big way. I have no idea. He was probably my #1 through this first 100 pages. But yeah, so we get a 4,500 year time jump to get to the prologue. AKA, we haven't even gotten to chapter 1 yet. Part 1 doesn't start until page 35. Feels like I was paying off interest of a loan reading the first prelude and then the prologue. I was expecting the third chapter to be an intro, and then the fourth to be a preliminary, and then the fifth to be an origin. I didn't know when I was gonna start the story with all these pre's and pros, but nonetheless, we start the story and we're introduced to our, I think, main character, Kaladin, and it's pronounced Kaladin. I listened to the audiobook to make sure. And by the way, I'm kind of rambling, and maybe that's how this will be, but I didn't love the audiobook compared to the Mistborn audiobook and even the Yumi audiobook. This one just felt a little more stale to me so far. Like, the characters don't have incredibly unique voices or anything like that. There is a female narrator and a male narrator. I'll get to that in a second. And I am listening on like 1.3 speed, so maybe that's affecting it, but I don't know, it's just not hitting quite the same. And just to get a scope of how long this book is, to listen to the whole thing at 1x speed, it's 46 hours long. That's nuts. All that to say, I'm enjoying reading this more than listening to it. Once we actually get into the story, again, there's a lot of characters and a lot of words kind of describing the magic and even the equipment they're wearing, the types of people, what they look like. The writing style is a typical Sanderson. It's very easy to read. It's in third person POV, and the POVs are focused, like I said, on Kaladin. Then we get introduced to another character, Shallan. The writing is typical Sanderson writing, but it does feel a little bit different than Mistborn and even Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. And again, that's all I can compare it to. I think maybe that's just because we're getting started, we're getting acquainted. Like, it's just like the introductory phases, so maybe it's more exposition. And also, coming off of the blade itself, it is interesting because I'm so used to the snarky, witty writing right now. Sanderson definitely includes some humor, but it's definitely more PG than Joe Abercrombie. Although the contents of the book, I don't want you to think this is like a PG squeaky clean book. There's a lot of fighting and blood and gore. The magic system seems really cool. I can like visualize what's happening. Sanderson does such a great job at like explaining almost the special effects of what's going on. Like you can visualize how it would look on the big screen with how he describes the magic. It does feel like watching a movie. Our introduction to Kaladin, he is dripping aura. I didn't realize he's just a teen. He's just a teen, and he's dragging these untrained fighters into war and has apparently been typically winning those battles. I'm like comparing him to a young LeBron on the Cavs, dragging Larry Hughes and Zydrunas Ilgauskas to the championship series. So all in all, between Seth and Kaladin's introduction, we get a ton of fighting and combat and action and suspense in the first 50 pages of this, which I love. I'm absolutely not complaining about that. Because I just came off of reading 2 of Joe Abercrombie's books in the First Law trilogy, 2 pretty big books in my opinion, I wasn't like in the mood to read an epic fantasy right now. I kind of wanted to switch it up into something like thrillery, or I have a couple books back here that I had in mind to read next. I wasn't super hyped to read this, as hype as I wanted to be, but after reading the first 50 pages, I was locked in. Strap me in and I'm ready for the ride. Maybe it was all the fight scenes. Maybe it's because my edition has pictures. I mean, I'm a grown man, but I love pictures in books. And on that note, as I've been reading, I've been kind of doing the approach that I've avoided a lot with series that I've read. And by that I mean, I'm going to like the Stormlight wiki or Googling what these characters and what these magical jewelry or magical weapons that they're using look like. I'm trying my hardest not to see any spoilers. I'm almost like Googling with one eye open. And sometimes, you know, when you go on the wiki and you type in someone's name and it does, and like a picture doesn't show up, you're like, ah. This boy dead. And yeah, that happened. That actually happened with one of the guys I wikied. He was like, what, I actually really liked him as a character. And he just was toast. And it was, I guess, almost kind of a spoiler because he doesn't have a picture on his wiki. But yeah, I think it's actually helping me visualize the world a lot better, looking at pictures of certain things just so I can kind of really get the full picture. And it's working because if the first 127 pages has done anything, it's created an entire world. Like I can feel the world building. I feel myself entering the world whenever I am reading the words on the pages. Like I know that I'm stepping foot, tiptoeing into this epic fantasy. And although it's the intro, it's so fun and it's not slow paced at all. It's been an absolute joy. I'm getting that weird phenomenon that like I actually just had when watching Happy Gilmore. It's like I want to love it and I know I'm gonna like it at least, but I want to love it so bad that I'm like waiting for it to impress me and hoping that it doesn't disappoint me. I don't know, maybe my expectations are too high, but it's like this weird kind of feeling. I don't know how to describe that. I didn't mention this before in my intro, but this is the biggest book I've read by far, or this is gonna be the biggest book. I think number 2 is Lightbringer by Pierce Brown, which is 784 pages. This is legit 1,000 pages. That being said, like I've read 10% of it in a day and a half. And I could have read more, but I had to stop myself last night because I wanted to film around the 100-page mark. I also feel like I'm somewhat getting a hold of the Cosmere a little bit. I don't know, like I've read some Sanderson books, but I don't really quite know what the connection with the Cosmere is. I just know it as some of his books, a lot of his books are connected in some manner. And I know one character in Yumi is in other books, but I think I'm noticing another connection in this book already with the Spren and what I read in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, when Yumi is stacking rocks like crazy, which kind of segues me into the second character. I've talked about Kaladin. Now I'll talk about Shala, who I feel like is going to be a really fun storyline to follow. I actually think I'm more so enjoying reading her right now than Kaladin. But I do feel like I'm gonna end up loving Kaladin. Shala's kind of like got this mystery to her. She's very cunning, where Kaladin is this honorable, like really talented fighter. They both have mysterious pasts that I'm kind of getting more information of, obviously, gradually. Shala can draw. She's like a young Ernest Hemingway. No, a young Pablo Picasso, if you will. And I was just like thinking how funny it would be if like we could visualize it and she like spends a whole page like talking about how like intense she gets into drawing, and then she like turns it around and it looks like that guy from SpongeBob that he drew and it came alive, that whose name escapes me. Brother Cabsol is like a cool, fun monk or a priest maybe? I don't know. He's not like those other monks or priests. He's a cool, fun one who dances on tables. Like he's at a country bar in Nashville. And again, this has just been a stream of consciousness out of me right now because I guess that's how I'm doing this. But I don't know, has anyone else noticed how much Sanderson says obviously? And I'll leave it at that. I'm excited to keep going. I'm excited to read another 100 pages. All right, break. All right, we're about a fourth through the book, maybe a fifth. Who's to say? I've been doing like a 50-50 read-listen, and I think I'm finally getting a little bit of a grasp what the plot is. It's about a war between the Alethi and the Parshendi. But I don't know if we've learned why they're fighting yet. If we have, I've just glazed right over it. I'm thinking it's like in Romeo and Juliet when it's like the Capulets and the other family whose name I can't think of. Like they've just been fighting so long that they forget why they're fighting. That's what I'm assuming is going on with the Alethis and the Parshendi. Most of the main characters we follow are on the Alethi side. We get a little bit more of a background of Kaladin, an origin story, if you will. There's a lot to keep track of. Honestly, there's so much stuff, and I'm just getting thrown new stuff all the time and trying to catch it. Go! Yeah, Bridge 4 sucks. So does Gaz. Gaz sucks. I don't know what sucks more, Bridge 4 or Gaz. I'm kind of leaning Gaz. That guy's the worst. There's a lot of masculine versus feminine stuff in this world. Like there's like female jobs or female responsibilities or things that they can even do in general. Like reading and writing is a female task. So if a man wants to read a book, they have to have someone read it to them. Maybe that's how we got audiobooks from the Alethi. Yalb is fun. I like Yalb. I like Yalb a lot. He seems like a good guy. We get introduced to a couple new characters, Adolin and Dalinar. Dalinar is Adolin's dad, and Dalinar's kind of washed. That's kind of his whole story arc right now, how he's just washed, but still has a little juice left in his game. He's kind of like a Phoenix Suns Shaquille O'Neal. One of them is going to be a main character. I'm leaning Dalinar, just based off of reading the back of the book, so this isn't any kind of spoiler. He has all these tales of being like this awesome, great fighter, but now he's like low-key going mad. Maybe not. He's having visions. I didn't expect to do a Ted reference here, but if anyone's ever needed a Thunder buddy, it's Dalinar. Dalinar has another son aside from Adolin. I can't think of his name. It starts with an R. His whole thing is like people think he's kind of creepy or weird, but to Adolin he isn't. He's just kind of like a quiet guy. There was a big hermit crab boss battle. That was really cool, actually. I don't want to give away any kind of spoilers aside from that, but I thought it was gonna go a lot different, that big hermit crab boss battle. My guy Kaladin's got his swagger back. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8, my guy. So that's fun. Kaladin's got some aura back. Kaladin wasn't being himself, for lack of better way to say it, to not spoil anything again, but he's back, baby. He's back in a big way. Well, not really. He's just kind of back in a small way. For being honest, it's like a small, gradual way, so I don't know why I said that. Kaladin's got his mojo jojo back, though, I'll say that. Seth is back. Seth is back. And he's totally different than the first time we see him in a way. The one thing I will share is that he looks just like Charlie Brown, apparently. Just a Charlie Brown looking at him. And he like hides what he's really capable of, because the first time we see him in this book, he does some pretty bad things. And then now we see him and it's a totally different kind of person, but it's for a reason. But yeah, he looks just like Charlie Brown, apparently, which I was not expecting. Honestly, I thought he was like some grizzled guy based on the first impression of him. But no, he's kind of like a short king Charlie Brown looking at him. So that's cool. Syl, that little spren, it's getting interesting. I'm liking where that story's going. It actually might be one of the more intriguing kind of storylines going on here, because I'm assuming that's playing to the bigger thing that's going on. Like, we are focused on this war, but obviously we're getting little droplets of information coming in. I'm assuming this isn't all just about a war between the Alethi and the Parshendi. I have a feeling there's some more fantastical reasons for the things that are happening. And it's not even like crazy things are even happening that much right now, but I'm assuming that they're going to, because you wouldn't just write 6 books of this size about this one war. One kind of random thing, and by kind I mean really random, I love when characters say, bah, bah. Like they're kind of like poo-pooing something, go, bah. I think I need to incorporate it into my vocabulary. Imagine your friend just says something and you just go, bah. I don't know what I would do if someone did that to me. A bunch of characters do it in the First Law trilogy, and it seems like bah is gonna continue all through Way of Kings, and I'm happy about that. I'm bah-ing bah stock. It's getting harder to not spoil things with these check-in reviews. I'm hoping I can kind of keep it spoiler-free like this. This is kind of obviously high level. Still really enjoying the book. It's flying by, actually. I'm listening on 1.5x speed. No big deal. Kind of a huge deal. Kind of like a monumental deal, actually. Sometimes when I listen to audiobooks, I start at 1.2x and then I'll work my way up to 1.5, and it just goes so much quicker and my brain can handle it. I feel like I've worked that muscle where it can handle that velocity of audiobook. And when you go to 1x after listening to 1.5, it sounds like this. It goes really slow. I don't know if I can even listen on 1x. It's 1.2 minimum. It's probably just because I got a huge brain. It's probably because I'm wicked smart. That's probably why I listened to it that fast. But yeah, the audiobook is still kind of fine. It's a serviceable audiobook. It's not going to be on any, you know, first, second, or even third team. It's just a serviceable role player right now. Maybe like the fourth guy off the bench fighting for minutes. That's kind of what this audiobook is like. Gary Trent Jr. I don't know, it might even be too good. Duncan Robinson. It can get hot, but typically it's, you know, just fine. That being said, reading it is awesome. Chapters aren't too long. Some of them are longer than others. Sanderson does a great job with like just not making you feel overly confused, even though he's throwing all this new information at you a lot in this first 250 pages. Found out what The Way of Kings is. I had the experience when you hear the title of the movie in the movie. All right, that's enough yapping. Let's get reading. Is that boy a soul caster or what? Yeah. All right, bye. It's Saturday night, my fiance's away, but my dog has been sick, so I've been home all day with ample time to read/listen to The Way of Kings, aka your boy's on chapter 22 of 75. Got my red blend right here, drinking like a man of class. Also got these. I don't know if you guys know about these, but you should. New flavor. It's essentially just fruit covered in sour sugar. Jeez, it's Fort Knox. The jaws of life to pry that thing open. Holy mackerel. Their main product is grapes, but this is frozen mangoes. I haven't had this one yet. It's apparently strawberry peach flavored mangoes. Yep. Name a better trio. I'll wait. So I'm living over here, just kind of hyping myself up to say I messed up. Yeah. Before I continue with the happenings of the last 100+ pages I've read, I had like a hankering to go back to the prelude and the prologue and kind of like skim it over again, and I realized I got Seth mixed up. He wasn't the 4,500 years ago guy. I was about to say, when he came back into the story, I was like, this dude is old. It's supposed to look like Charlie Brown, should be looking like Yoda. Seth is in the prologue, not the prelude. Classic mix-up. The prelude is before the prologue. But when I first started talking about Seth, I made it seem like he was in the prelude. I thought he was in the prelude initially. But the guy in the prelude is named Kalak. Seth, who's in the prologue, those events only happened like 5 or so years before where we're kind of entering the story. And while we're giving some hand up accountability, I gotta keep my hand raised. I'm dumb. Yeah, I'm dumb and I'm dumb. If I was a lollipop, I'd be a dum-dum, no doubt about it. I think I know why the Parshendi and the Alethi are fighting. For some reason, I didn't think it was told to us, but when I went back and skimmed the beginning, I feel like it was spurred by those events. I'm not gonna let you know if it was the 4,500 year ago one or the 5 year ago one. You gotta find that out on your own. But yeah, that's the thing. When you start a book, you're just kind of throwing all these characters and all these big things, all these new words, new equipment, new cities. It's hard to puzzle all the pieces together when you're just getting ramped up. Like, in retrospect, I feel silly mixing Seth up with Kalak. I don't know, I guess I gotta give myself a break because they were literally two characters I've never heard of before. So, I don't know, sue me, Seth. I didn't mean to mix you guys up, I'm sorry about that. Anyways, back to our current reading location. I last left off with you guys around page 220, and around this time, we're finally kind of seeing some overlap of the main characters, or not even the main character, just the characters in general. We're seeing them interact a little bit, which is always fun. I always like when that happens. Sometimes it feels like the characters are in their own box and you're following each story and have to kind of compartmentalize it. So it's really cool when they finally start interacting. Not a ton of that yet, but just a little bit, just a little taste of it. One thing I noticed, which I was a little surprised about, is that there isn't much humor in this book. Not that this is a comedy book or anything, but I just remember Mistborn being a little more witty. So far, Way of Kings is pretty serious, and I think that's just a product of the characters we're following. In this 100 pages read, I don't think I got one excerpt of Shallan, and she's kind of the more edgy one that would make jokes. It has made jokes, but for whatever reason, where I haven't gotten a peek into what she's up to. She's not answering my calls when I'm opening up this book, leaving me on red. So this like 100 pages of reading was all Dalinar and all Kaladin. And honestly, it was a lot of good stuff. We get more of kind of a peek into Kaladin's past, and it's making me realize why he's the only name I knew before I got into this book. He seems like a pretty chill dude. What isn't chill though is Dalinar's visions that he keeps having. We actually get this like That's So Raven look into his mind as he's having one of his visions, and that was super, super cool. I read that section and I feel like it hits so much harder than if I was going to listen to it. I'm feeling like I'm almost audiobooking Too Close to the Sun. I'm using it as almost like a crutch because I have been kind of playing with my dog all day, doing things around the house. It's been easy to listen to through a lot of this last 100 pages, but when I actually give myself the time to sit down and read it, it hits so much harder. Like that section with Dalinar vision was one of the coolest things I've read so far in this book, and maybe that just would have been that way anyways, even if I listened to it. Super dope to be a fly on the wall of one of Dalinar's horrific visions. And honestly, I think I noticed another similarity between The Way of Kings and Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I think I'm getting Cosmered. Starting to kind of connect the dots and cross the T's and dot the I's. Sanderson thought I'd never catch on to the Cosmere. I'm getting my sea legs with the Cosmere. We get this epic introduction to some like badass Power Rangers. And again, I feel like with The Way of Kings, the world building and the magic and the fight scenes are so sick. Like they are so visual. I love Mistborn, but the world was just gloomy in general. A lot of reds, a lot of blacks, a lot of grays, kind of a gothic world. But with The Way of Kings, you get so much color, so much descriptors of color, and it just feels bright. It feels like this, feels like this. Things glowing up, things that are like translucent, vivid descriptions of what armor looks like. Just really, really cool. And I'm like, again, I'm just like here for the ride. At this point in the book, I'm about 30% the way through. I'm kind of getting a feel for the bigger picture, and I'm getting really excited about it. I still have not an iota of a clue what's gonna happen next, but I'm definitely getting a kinship for these characters. But I want more Shallan. I miss Shallan. Really haven't heard much from her in the last 200 pages. We do get a lot of Adolin, and Renarin is Dalinar's other son. We get a little more Renarin, and I feel like he's gonna be a major player in this story, even though he's kind of subdued right now. We don't really know much about him. I'm almost getting Bran vibes from him. That's about all I got for you. I'm actually probably gonna read more tonight, and maybe I'll check in tomorrow. Okay, so 18 Birdie says I hit that 335 yards, which cannot be right. About 120 yards, I got my approach. This could look ugly. Or it could look really good. Get up. Oh, started my golfing journey like when I started my reading journey. So I'm pretty novice at both. Got about a 4-foot putt here. Looks pretty straight. I'm gonna go for the left edge. Didn't break at all. Not gonna get mad about par. I'm gonna be so real with you. I'm not mad about par at all. We're gonna play another hole just to see if I come back to earth. Someone once told me you should film every par 3 just in case you get a hole in one. Doubt that's gonna happen, but you never know. About 145 to the pin. Got my 8-iron. That looks really good. This is not normal. This is about 12 feet away. Going right at it. Oh, okay, another par shendy, if you know what I'm saying. Oh, am I nasty at golf? I'll check in with my final score. I'm sure I'm not. 3 hours later. To no surprise to anybody, I've absolutely fell off the rails. Just trying to break 90 at this point. I was here thinking I might break 80. Nonetheless, 88 is my record. If I shoot an 87, that's gonna beat my record. So I'm officially done with parts 1 and 2. There's 5 parts total. It's honestly low-key flying by, this book. It's crazy to think I've read over 400 pages and I'm not even halfway done with the book though. That being said, I don't want it to be over, and it hasn't felt like a slow burn. There's a lot of combat scenes, which keeps the adrenaline pumping. What I thought was really cool is that when they're in battle, they get the thrill, which is like when you run into the star in Super Mario Bros. You kind of just get ravenous and indestructible. So that's pretty dope. Sadeas gives me Snape vibes a little bit. Anyone else? It's just me? He's a little Snapey to me. Why is Dalinar so concerned with what people are wearing? Imagine him walking down the streets in New York City in 2025, his head would explode. How many different types of spren are there? There's wind spren, glory spren, rot spren, pain spren. You could be eating a taco and taco spren would come floating out. You could be playing PS2 and MVP 05 spren come flying out of there. Do a kickflip, Bob Burnquist spren. Chad Muska spren. I feel like it's late in the game for me to mention this, but storms are really common in the world building. It's not a spoiler or anything. It's literally called Stormlight. But I just realized I haven't mentioned that yet. This section of reading was a lot of Kaladin trying to impress his crew. Hey, who am I? This is a sword. That's Kaladin. That's Kaladin trying to impress his boys. Starting to think Shallan's not in the story anymore. She hasn't popped up in 300 pages. This 100-ish pages of reading is a lot of Dalinar grappling with his new opinions, and is he going mad? Is he not going mad? Yeah, really good. Really good stuff so far. Hot take, Way of Kings is pretty freaking good. Who would have thunk? Officially crossed the halfway mark. I can actually fold the book and read it like this. So that's big for me. And for those of you concerned about the spine, I'm not concerned about it, so you shouldn't be. One thing I haven't really mentioned about this yet is that there are interludes between sets of chapters, which are pretty confusing. Some of those interludes have Seth in them, or I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Zeth, and I've been pronouncing it wrong this entire time. I like Seth better, so we're gonna stick with Seth. But yeah, with those interludes, you don't really know what's going on, and then maybe at the end of like the 3 or 4 pages, you get this like tiny spark that you connect things a little bit. But I'm just going into it not expecting it to make a ton of sense with the interludes. Shallan's back. Shallan is back. We finally get her POV again. Feels like it's been too long. Feel like we're two friends reconnecting after years apart. She's still drawn. She has a picture perfect memory, so she can kind of like Pokemon snap something that's happening in her life and then draw it in like a heartbeat. Still not sure if it's a superpower or if she's just like just nasty at drawing. She's working under Yasna, who I haven't mentioned yet. But yeah, Shallan's kind of doing this temporary unpaid internship with Yasna. Shallan also loves jam. She's a big jam girl. Big jam girly. And I don't think that has any relevance to the story aside from the fact that I love jam too. I'm a big jam boy. Fun fact, I have like some form of a PB&J every couple days, whether it's on a rice cake, on my oatmeal, or just on good old-fashioned gluten-free bread. People forget how good PB&Js are. I'm not people. In this 100+ pages, we get some flashbacks to Kaladin's past. And we've kind of gotten those sprinkled in, but we get a little bit more in this period. Kaladin's dad's low-key a G. He's a badass. But 13-year-old Cal doesn't think so, because he's just a little snot-nosed teen. But I feel like his dad is like a Ned Stark. He's like an honorable guy. Or is he? Modern day Kaladin is like a young Phil Jackson with his on-the-field strategizing. How the tables turn! Pun intended. Something monumental happens between pages 430 and 560 or whatever it is. I won't spoil it for anyone, but for those who know, it's kind of like when at the end of the movie a zombie is like this and it goes... Maybe 580 pages in is a good time to just tell you the difference of a shard bearer and a soul caster. From what I understand, a shard bearer wields a sword that is called a shard. It's a special kind of sword, and they also oftentimes, or maybe every time, wear shard plate, which is just juiced up armor. A soul caster is what Yasna is, the woman Shallan's studying under. They wear this kind of like gemstone jewelry, almost like a more dainty version of Thanos' glove, and they can like with it. I don't really know what they can do with it quite yet. We see a little bit of what they can do, but I'm not gonna get too deep into it. But just for a little taste, Yasna kind of does like the Pikachu move in Super Smash Bros. When the lightning comes down. Pika! It's kind of Yasna! Yeah, so one pleasant surprise is there's a lot of philosophizing in this fiction book. And I feel like that's something that people overlook who don't read fantasy or fiction in general, is how much real world thought-provoking things can occur or be talked about or theorized or philosophicated in a 1,000-page book that involves soulcaster shard bearers on this made-up country called Rashar. It's so interesting. It really makes you think what you would do in these situations and what makes a good guy versus a bad guy. Is there a gray area? So yeah, I'll leave you at that. I actually have to run off to my little side hustle of a portable golf simulator. If you're in the Boston area and you want to rent an inflatable golf simulator bay, hit your boys up. Birdie Express. It's a nice basketball court. It's a shame it's infested with spiders. That's what we call layups for short guys. All right, I got my notes. Another thing I'm probably mentioning way too late in the game is that eye color is a definer of class in this world. Like I, pun intended, would be a dark eyes, and I would be looked down by the light eyes. Those freaky blue-eyed people. Nah, I'm just being a dark-eyed hater. Shallan has been sneaky. She's been snoopy. She's been friend-zoning the living daylights out of this guy. But she's learning. She's learning a lot. But that learning is getting in the way of her ultimate mission, which I don't know if I've talked about yet, but I won't talk about. Kaladin, on the other hand, is a glass case of emotion. He has a touch of imposter syndrome. He's burnt out. He might be a little depressed. He's definitely depressed. But someone in this book says the saying life before death, and it like rejuvenates, it invigorates like an entire crew of people. And it's funny because that saying is just essentially, it's the journey, not the destination. Honestly, in 50 pages, I wouldn't be surprised if Kaladin was just like, live, laugh, love. And Dalinar's like, everything happens for a reason. Rashar is behind the times in these inspirational sayings. Fuck Rashon, that guy stinks. He's worse than gas. I volunteer as tribute. We kind of get that in a flashback. Speaking of flashback, we get a little background on the Parshendi through Shallan's research. We learn a lot more about that and other things like Voidbringers. It's apparently like a mythological city like Atlantis. But I don't think it's underwater. It's kind of like the above ground pool version of Atlantis. There's an absolutely thrilling chapter with Shallan that involves some magic and a lot of blood. I'll leave it at that. And yeah, I know I'm sitting crisscross. I was trying so hard not to sit crisscross applesauce, but it's the most comfortable way to sit. Kaladin's dream was super cool. Really cool dream. In the writing, we get kind of like a drone shot of the entire planet, and it's really cool. Did I say it was cool? Because it was really cool. We follow that up with a really touching, then wild scene with Shallan and Yasna that I will not spoil, but this was my reaction when I read it. And then we learned about the aftermath of that, and that was equally crazy. All right, I got my car because I felt like it was a little awkward recording in public in the middle of a field. The interludes were super interesting here. I feel like I'm kind of getting a grip on the interludes. Seth went SS Goku on him. An absolutely berserk scene. Awesome scene. Seth was really chucking around those tables, huh? Just yeeting tables left and right. What do those tables do to you, bro? It's a bad day to be a table, I'll tell you that. 5'6", but I can palm a basketball. Oh, okay. Overall, it's a very good book. You know what? I'll say it again. I know it's an unpopular opinion, a brave opinion, one might even say. But The Way of Kings is a good book, and I'll wear it on my chest like a scarlet letter if I need to. And honestly, I'm impressed with my speed of reading so far, not gonna lie. 720 pages in 2 weeks? Yeah, on to part 4, and I hear the last fourth of this book, we get a Sanderlanche. Apparently the first 3/4 was supposed to be a slow burn. It hasn't felt that way to me, and I cannot wait to see what the last fourth has in store. In the meantime, I'm gonna go check up some more bricks. I was up past 1 a.m. reading this last night, so I'm a little tired, I'm a little groggy, but I also only have this much left in the book. Yep, read it and weep. I'll read it, you weep. You just bawl your eyes out because I'm almost done with it. I just read pages 725 to 865, and a good amount happens, but call me a fresh new pair of Calvin Klein, says I'm gonna keep this brief, because I know we're all waiting on the ending, and I wanna start reading the last 150 pages. But before I do that, I'm honestly upset with myself that it took me this long to mention how nice the book feel is on this book. This big Brandon Sanderson has like a nice, has like grooves to it. So does The Way of Kings. And it just feels good to kind of run your hand across it. I actually was thinking of doing a whole video about book feel, like how it feels to hold the book. You know, like the material, pages, everything. And I was gonna like rank my favorite book feel versus my least favorite book feel. That, I don't know if anyone would watch that. So overall, this is a big 140-ish pages for Dalinar and Kaladin. Dalinar comes clean to his sons about his visions. They've kind of known about him from the start, but he gets into the nitty-gritty of it. We get more inside access, VIP coverage of Dalinar's visions, which is always very intriguing. It's probably like my favorite part of reading this book, because that is what sort of gives us the wider scope of what's going on. Even though we don't know necessarily what those visions mean, they just leave little cookie crumbs, just add a level of intrigue. Speaking of intrigue, I'm kind of going in circles here. The king in this book has essentially a jester, and that jester is someone that I recognize, which is really cool to see, and I feel like I'm figuring out the Cosmere a little bit, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. We get a pretty cool battle scene with Dalinar. I think it's funny how he like bribes everyone with shard plates or shard swords. He's just striking deals with everyone, like, hey, if you do this, I'll give you a shard plate. Hey, I'll do this, I'll give you a sword. One line that I thought was an absolute bar: he felled Parshendi like a man sweeping crumbs after a meal. That goes hard. That's the kind of bars you can expect from Brandon Sanderson. It goes Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, Brandon Sanderson. Kaladin, on the other hand, it's kind of making sense when people call him whiny a little bit. I get it. I don't know, maybe I haven't read enough of them. I think he has survivor's guilt, and he learned something pretty monumental about himself in this reading period that I don't want to give away. I have a theory that is alive. If I don't see someone die in a movie and like we're just kind of told that they die or it's just presumed, I don't believe that they're actually dead. I haven't seen perspire yet. That's not the right word. I haven't seen perish yet, so I feel like maybe alive and well. I think it's funny that weathermen are a thing in this world. It makes sense. They have like so many storms. But yeah, meteorologists are a thing in this world, and they're pretty coveted. Speaking of storms, I already mentioned that's when Dalinar has his That's So Raven moment. And what I think is really cool, it's almost like how Kaladin's dream was like a drone shot. Dalinar's visions make me feel like I'm in a first-person video game cutscene. And the last thing I'll say is that Dalinar is an absolute Mac daddy. Overall, in this period, there's just a lot of potential energy. There's a lot of things that are being discovered. Once again, though, not much Shallan in this reading. I'm starting to think that she's like the Kevin Jonas of these main characters. Important, vital even, but just doesn't get the main stage as much as the other two. But it feels like we're gonna get so much more from her, but maybe just not at this juncture. Next time I'm checking in with you guys, it is going to be when I'm done with the book. Let's do it. New achievement, Tome Destroyer. I did it. Anything is possible. I'm done. It's over. I finished it. All 1,002 pages. I feel like I needed to get dressed up for the occasion, so that's why I'm wearing this suit. I don't know. It just felt like a big monumental moment. If you told me 2 years ago that I would have read a book in general, but especially one that was 1,000 plus pages long, I would have said you were cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So if I can do this, you can too. I feel like I'm thanking the Academy right now. Let's just get into the review. I'm gonna rewind and start at the beginning of this reading session, which is around page 870. Hello. My guy Kaladin would be nasty at dodgeball. Dive, dip, dodge, and dodge, duck and dodge. Homeboy looking like that Skeletor thing from Super Mario, running around. We get a kind of a big battle between the Alethi and the Parshendi, one that's been building and bubbling to the surface ever since we started reading on page 1. Well, more like page 35, I should say. I'm starting to understand why Drake said no new friends, because we got an absolute fake friend alert. We got an absolute unreal few chapters with Kaladin and Dalinar. I mean, oh, wow, I can't. I can't even, honestly. If I was to utter any words, I would be in spoiler territory. But I was just fist pumping and my jaw was on the floor. And in all this suspense and craziness, I thought it was so funny that we get like kind of like almost a comic relief that reminded me of this scene from 300. And then that kind of escalates, but when the first kick to the chest was hilarious and I didn't expect the subsequent events. But safe to say the Black Thorn is back. Kinda, in a different way. We get a big twist. I mean, we get a lot of twists. This is what it feels like reading the last 100 pages. A lot of twists. And then we complete part 4, and I was gonna stop there and check in with you guys after that, but I couldn't stop reading. This was last night, and I was just ravenous to know what happens at the end. Part 5 is like 50 pages, so I felt like I might as well polish it off. And I'm happy I did. And part 5, Shallan, aka Kevin Jonas, is back. And some wild stuff happens. And then Seth is back, and some wild stuff happens. And I want to do a slight correction on Seth's appearance. I was saying he looked like Charlie Brown, and I knew that wasn't 100% right. I knew it when I said it. I couldn't get who I really meant off the tip of my tongue, and it finally clicked. Seth looks like Tommy Pickles. Not Charlie Brown, because of the big eyes. Charlie Brown barely has any eyes. They're just kind of 2 periods. So Seth is more like a Tommy Pickle looking ass. I'm glad I got that off my chest. But I didn't want to go back and like fix I'm keeping this vlog as like a realistic, almost journal entry of where my mind was at that point of reading. So I could have gone back and fixed my little mishap with thinking Seth was from the 4,500 year ago part. But I feel like that shows the true colors of how I am as a reader and how slow sometimes it takes me to click the pieces together. But they'll click eventually. You know, they're gonna click, hopefully, but it might just take longer than the average reader. And look, I'm at peace with that. I said earlier when I was sitting here at the beginning of all this, Brandon Sanderson uses the word obviously a lot, and he does, but there's a word that I feel like he might use even more in this book. And I guess it makes sense, but reading this book has to be the most times the word Tempest has been used in a single book. Can we get a Tempest counter on Way of Kings? I still don't even know the full definition of Tempest. I feel like it's storm related, so maybe that's why it's used so much. But they'd be like, it felt like a tempest in my stomach. Yeah, bro, I get it. I had Chipotle and a coffee at the same time. Felt like a tempest in my stomach too. But that word's not about to be entering my daily vocabulary like it was in The Way of Kings. That was crazy how many times tempest was used. But yeah, there's like 5 or 6 chapters in part 5, and every single chapter in part 5 has an oh shit moment, a reveal, a twist. Oh, what's up, bro? Still doing good over there? Do you need like a lemonade or anything? No, you're fine? Okay, cool. I got absolutely Sanderlanched, and I loved every second of it. I knew it was coming, and I still wasn't prepared. Sanderlanched. Final thoughts though, honestly, finishing this book could be the biggest accomplishment of my year. And I'm getting married in 2 months. No, I'm kidding. No, this is number 2. This is number 2 after that. I gotta give a shout out to Bridge 4. Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk? But yeah, The Way of Kings, with its 4.67 Goodreads rating and critical acclaim, absolutely lives up to the hype. It was an absolute beast. And I both want to start book 2 of the series immediately, but I also feel like I just went 8 rounds with Prime Evander Holyfield. I like prioritized reading this book like in my life. It only took me 17 days, and maybe that's long for some people, but for me, that is lightning fast. That's how long I usually finish a 550-page book, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is 1,000 pages. So yeah, I probably overlooked things I needed to do in my personal life and my job because I wanted to read this somewhat quickly, and because it was that good. Like, it's not like I wanted to read it just for this video. I wanted to read it to know where it was going. It is a 5-star book. I mean, if I want to be picky, I could say 4.8 star book. I don't know. Again, my ratings don't really mean anything. It's like the points in Who's Line. So don't quote me on the 4.8, okay? I don't need to be quoted on that. Just wait for someone to comment in quotations, 4.8 dash Phil got books. Yeah, but this is just so good and got so great at the end. With everything starting to connect, the people, the mysteries, the magic. I realize I never even told you what Stormlight is, but I'm not gonna. This might be the only review of The Way of Kings that doesn't mention what the series name Stormlight actually is. I'm gonna let you find that out for yourself. But yeah, I feel like I'm learning the Stormlight Archive language. I've just graduated from Stormlight 101, and next semester I'm taking Stormlight 201. I got the foundation built, and I really can't wait to see where the series goes. But by can't wait, I mean I am gonna wait until next year because I have other books I want to read. And on that note, if you guys liked this reading vlog, let me know what you did like, let me know what you didn't like, and if I should make a reading vlog for a different book, and what book I should make it for. Preferably a popular book. I did my best to make this spoiler free. I mean, I alluded to things, but I hope I didn't spoil anything. Try to do it like an if you know situation, but if you don't know, you don't know. That being said, if you do want like a spoiler version of something, I would be down to do that, but I want it to be like a super popular book that is much shorter. So if you want me to do another reading vlog, let me know some shorter books I can do that are really popular that people would want to watch someone's reaction for and wouldn't care if it was potentially spoiled. But honestly, I like keeping things spoiler free. I go so back and forth with this, so if anyone has any advice on that, let me know. That's it. All right. Deuces. Bye. Have a good day. Have a good night. Toodaloo. It's me again on the golf course. Let's try the 60-degree. Oh. A little long. Did not give it enough. Did not give it enough. Is this for par? Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more book stuff.